Welcome in. It's prediction week. It's time to talk about what's going to happen during the 2022 season. I know we've done some of that leading up into this, but today we're going to really start looking at each conference one by one and kind of get some predictions, a feel for what's going to happen during the 2022 season. So today we're going to start with the SEC. And I think it's really important before we kind of dive too deep into the SEC. Everyone knows Alabama and Georgia, kind of what they've been able to accomplish, but I think it takes away from the depth of the conference when you only talk about those two teams. The SEC West in general, very loaded. The SEC East has made huge strides. I mean, you look at a team like Kentucky and Tennessee seems like they're on the rise. Florida might be coming back. So I just wanted to say in general, this is a very, very deep conference and one that per usual is going to be very, very tough to get out of unscathed. So let's start with the contenders in the SEC. I think the two I named at the top, Alabama and Georgia, they're obviously contenders this year to win the conference. And in order to be in this group, you have to be a contender to actually win the SEC championship. I think there's a case to be made that you could just put those two there. And I know that sounds radical, but I really think many people could make that case. I could make that argument. But I'm going to add two teams, and they both have a caveat next to their names. And most times when I go through these predictions, I won't put an asterisk or anything next to them, but I'm so torn on these two teams because talent-wise, I see it all there. I also see it from a culture perspective, and I also see it from a coaching perspective that these two teams could also be contenders this season. And it's all going to come down to a game between the two, and it's Arkansas and Texas A&M. I am very high on both of these teams this year. I think one of them will have a great opportunity to get to 10-2 on the season. And I think it's going to be whoever wins the game between the two. And I'm going to lean with Arkansas. I think Arkansas is going to be very, very good this year. I have this gut feeling, gut reaction that their offensive line is going to continue to be great. They have a very good quarterback in KJ Jefferson, a very good run game, which they're going to lean on. And I think they're going to be far more physical on the defensive side as well. I think that's a team that could go 10-2, 9-3. I think they're going to be very competitive throughout the year. Texas A&M, on the other hand, I think they're probably a team who's going to range from 8-4 to 9-3. Again, depending on the outcome of that game with Arkansas. So still a very good year. But I think 8-4 would probably not be living up to expectations. And I kind of expect that from the Aggies this upcoming season. As far as Alabama and Georgia goes, both are going to have double-digit wins. When I get to the end, I'll talk a little bit more about where I project them to go as far as record-wise. But I feel very good about both those teams being extremely solid again and meeting potentially in the SEC championship. Now, there are a few teams that can derail these plans a little bit. So my dark horse in the SEC, we've talked about them a lot on this show. I've brought them up a ton. I'm a believer. I'm 100% sold, and it might come back to bite me. But the Tennessee Volunteers are my dark horse in the SEC this year. I think their offense is going to be exceptional. Hendon Hooker, Josh Heupel, Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt. I mean, these guys are very, very good. Jabari Small at running back. I just think they're going to put up points, and I'm not sure there's many teams that they play that are going to be able to keep them from scoring those points. I think it's unique offense, and it's going to provide unique opportunities and challenges for other teams in the SEC. I also think their defense will be better. It has to be better. They got ran over at times last year, gave up an obscene amount of points at times last year. I think that changes, and a big part of it is because I think they're going to get after the quarterback far better than they did a season ago. I think this is a team that could reach that 9-3 mark this season. I don't know if they can go higher than that, and that's just based on schedule. Alabama, at Georgia, at LSU. That's tough. But on the flip side, they get Florida and Kentucky at home. That gives them a very nice opportunity in the SEC East. So 9-3, very possible. They are a dark horse contender in the SEC this year. Sleeper team. How about Florida? How about the Gators? Anthony Richardson, if he takes that step in the right direction, I could see this team surprising people. I could see them coming out week one and upsetting a top 10 team like Utah. It's possible if Richardson takes that step. Nervous about their wide receiver options. I think that could come back to bite them. Also nervous about their depth on the defensive side of the football, especially the defensive line. But again, very good offensive line, very big, strong, powerful quarterback, a good run game. There's a chance that we could be sleeping on Florida by the end of the year and that they could reach 8-4 or 9-3. 7-5 seems probable, but as a sleeper team, there's definitely room for even more growth going on in the season. My pretender in the SEC is Kentucky. And Kentucky was awesome last year. They were such a great story. They're so physical on both sides of the football. They ran the ball really well. They really just weren't afraid of anyone they played. And I think that's taking on the identity of their head football coach, Mark Stoops. And for that reason, they're going to be a tough out for everyone. But I just don't see it talent-wise at the skill positions, and I don't see the defense being as good as they were a year ago. Tough matchups this year at Florida, at Ole Miss, at Tennessee, Georgia, Louisville. That's tough. I mean, a lot of people, I've seen various predictions that have them winning like 11 games this year. That's not happening. That's just not happening. I don't even think I can convince myself in them going 10-2 this year, even though I think that's some people's expectations. I think this is going to be more like a 7-5 team. And that's not really a knock on them. They have a really tough schedule. I think they're going to be a quality team, but I think they're a pretender based on where I think some people have them going this upcoming season. So where does that leave us? I think in the SEC East, I think Georgia gets pushed by Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida. But I think they make it to the SEC championship with an 11-1 record. I think they get out of the East just barely at 11-1. Alabama. So I mentioned at the top, the SEC West is crazy. The SEC East is crazy. Alabama's schedule is crazy. You know, I'm really high on Tennessee this year. They have to go to Tennessee. And that's going to be really tough, right? Not for Alabama. I think Alabama's going 12-0 this year. I think they are incredibly impressive. This whole team, the talent that they have, that they're going to put out on the field is going to be very tough to beat. I love Bryce Young. I find it very hard for me to sit back and go, that team can really beat Alabama this year. Now, could they slip up? Sure, they've slipped up in the past with great teams, but I think this team is going to be very historic and very, very good throughout the entire year. I think Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship, and you will see Alabama in the college football playoff as the #1 overall seed in the CFP. They're going to be very, very good. This is one of Nick Saban's most talented teams in my eyes. They have a lot of star power, and if everything comes together, this team could be very, very hard to beat and match up really well with many of the historic teams that Alabama has had in recent history. So that's it for the SEC. We will have more predictions going through each conference, talking about kind of my general feelings, talking about different teams that could be sleepers, dark horses, and pretenders, and who are the contenders for the college football playoff. We'll talk more about it, but thanks for joining today.